The emergency beacon pulsed with ancient power, sending ripples through subspace that hadn't been disturbed in millennia. Chancellor Taylor watched from the command center as the last functional defense satellites around Elora Prime adjusted their positions, their energy reserves diverted to amplify the desperate signal. "Signal strength at maximum," reported Chief Communications Officer Viran, his scaled fingers trembling slightly over the controls. "Broadcasting on all frequencies, including the forbidden bands. May the ancestors forgive us." Taylor didn't respond. Forgiveness was a luxury they could no longer afford, not with 3 billion Elorans looking to her for salvation. Through the viewport, she could see the atmospheric disturbances already beginning. Dark patches in the upper atmosphere, where the Void Swarm's advanced scouts had begun their work. 2 weeks, perhaps 3, before the main body arrived. Chancellor, Senior Admiral Corvus approached, his military posture failing to hide his exhaustion. "The last refugee transports have departed for the Sanctuary Moons. 15 million civilians evacuated. It's all we could manage with the remaining ships." "And our defense fleet?" Taylor asked, though she already knew the answer. 23 warships remain operational. The rest were lost at Beller Prime or damaged beyond repair. Corvus handed her a data tablet. "Even with the automated defense grid, we can't hold against what's coming." The council chamber had emptied hours ago, most officials rushing to secure passage for their families on the final evacuation ships. Only the most devoted, or those with nowhere else to go, remained at their posts. Elder scientist Maven approached, her ancient frame supported by a hovering mobility chair. For 2 centuries, she had served as the Confederation's foremost xenologist. "Chancellor, a moment of your time." Maven's voice was barely above a whisper. "There's something you should know about the signal we're broadcasting." Taylor followed the Elder to a quieter corner of the command center. "What concerns you, Elder?" "The frequencies we're using. They'll reach beyond the treaty boundaries, into sectors even our deepest exploration missions never charted." Maven's multifaceted eyes reflected the emergency lights, including a small yellow star system in the Orion Spur. "Earth," Taylor said, the word like a forbidden spell. "You believe the humans might hear our call." "They will hear it," Maven confirmed. "Whether they'll answer is another question entirely. The quarantine protocols have kept them isolated for 3 centuries. They may not even have the technology to respond." Commander Zinthos, head of military intelligence, joined them silently. "Or they might have more technology than anyone suspects. The Containment Committee reports have grown increasingly concerned over the past decades. Unusual energy signatures from their system. Unexplained disappearances of monitoring stations." "You believe they've broken containment?" Taylor asked. "I believe," Zinthos said carefully, "that we know far less about humans than we pretend to. The old records from the contact wars describe capabilities that seem impossible. Myths and exaggerations, Maven dismissed with a wave. No species could survive the radiation levels described in those accounts. Yet we still quarantine their entire system," Taylor noted. "For 300 years, we've maintained the fiction that Earth was too primitive for contact, while secretly ensuring they remained isolated. If they discover the truth..." A proximity alarm cut through their conversation. On the main holographic display, a new cluster of anomalies appeared at the edge of the system. Multiple fold space ruptures detected. Viran called out, panic edging into his voice. "Unknown configuration, not Confederation designs." The command center fell silent as the anomalies resolved into ships, dozens of them, then hundreds, emerging from what appeared to be self-generated wormholes rather than traditional jump points. "Is it?" someone whispered. "No," Corvus answered, studying the tactical display. "The Void Swarm moves as one entity. This is something else." The largest of the unknown vessels transmitted a signal, simple, direct, and in perfect Eloran standard language. "This is Admiral William Kowalski of the Terran Defense Fleet Thermopylae. Earth received your distress call. We're here to help. Please provide tactical data on the entity you call the Void Swarm." Chancellor Taylor stared at the message, a cold realization settling in her hearts. Their call for aid had been answered by the one species the galaxy had united to contain. Lieutenant Commander Sophia Chen rushed through the corridors of Mars Base Alpha, the station's red alert klaxons punctuating her footsteps. Behind her, a team of signal analysts struggled to keep pace, their tablets displaying the impossible transmission that had broken through humanity's isolation just hours ago. The authentication protocols check out, Senior Analyst Paddle reported, his voice betraying his excitement. This isn't another false positive. The signal originated from approximately 87 light-years away, from what our star charts identify as the Cygnus sector. Chen nodded, swiping her access card at the entrance to Olympus Command. The massive doors, 3 feet of tungsten titanium alloy, parted silently. And the language analysis. Complete, replied Dr. Harrison, the xenolinguistics specialist. The translation matrix identified it as Elloran Standard. We've reconstructed most of the message. A distress call describing some kind of entity they call the Void Swarm consuming entire star systems. The command center hummed with controlled chaos as officers coordinated emergency protocols across Earth's defenses. On the main display, Chen could see the orbital defense grid activating, not to repel an attack, but to prepare for humanity's first deliberate venture beyond their solar prison in 3 centuries. Admiral William Kowalski stood at the center of it all, a granite figure amid the storm. 30 years commanding the Lazarus fleet had carved lines into his face that no rejuvenation therapy could erase. Commander Chen, he acknowledged, his voice resonant in the momentary hush that fell over the room. Your report. Confirmed first contact, sir. The signal matches nothing in our databases, but analysis suggests it's an advanced species facing extinction-level threat. Chen handed him her secure tablet. They call themselves the Elloran Confederation. Kowalski's weathered face remained impassive as he reviewed the data and our response capabilities. The Thermopylae battle group can be ready in 12 hours. The remaining fleet elements would need 36 hours to break hibernation protocols. The Admiral turned to the holographic display of Sol System, where hundreds of hidden shipyards and armories were now revealing themselves. Coming online after decades of secrecy, humanity had used their quarantine productively, building not just ships, but an entire war machine disguised as research stations and mining operations. Director Winters, Kowalski called to the civilian representative from the Terran Coalition. I need an executive decision. The quarantine breach protocols are clear, but responding to this signal means revealing everything we've built since the contact incident. Director Catherine Winters, the highest-ranking civilian authority present, stood from her position at the strategic operations table. At 73, she was one of the few people alive who remembered the day humanity learned they weren't alone, and that the galaxy had condemned them to isolation. The Security Council voted unanimously, she said, not just to respond, but to deploy the full Lazarus fleet. A murmur ran through the command staff. The full fleet, all 300 ships and their support elements, had never operated together outside simulations. It seems, Winters continued, her voice carrying the weight of history, that our mysterious quarantine enforcers have bigger problems than keeping humanity caged. According to the Intelligence Division, this void swarm poses an existential threat not just to the Ellorans, but potentially to all life in this quadrant of the galaxy. Kowalski's eyes narrowed, including Earth. Precisely. Winters activated her secure terminal, authorizing the release of the final command codes. The Terran Coalition will not wait for this threat to reach our doorstep. We will meet it among the stars. Commander Chen watched as the Admiral's authorization completed the sequence. Throughout the solar system, stealth fields disengage, revealing humanity's secret armada. On the tactical display, the Thermopylae, a dreadnought nearly 4 kilometers long, powered up its main systems for the first time outside of battle drills. Send word to all ships, Kowalski ordered. Operation Daybreak is active. Launch protocols initiated. On screen, the first wave of humanity's fleet moved into formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun as they prepared to shatter the chains that had bound them for centuries, and to introduce themselves to a galaxy that had tried to forget them. The emergency council chamber fell silent as Dr. Maya Jackson's holographic display shifted to show comparative physiological data. Side by side, the human baseline measurements towered over those of 27 known spacefaring species. "This isn't just about our physical capabilities," she continued, walking through the three-dimensional projection, "though those alone would be enough to explain the quarantine. It's our psychological profile that truly terrified them." Jackson highlighted a brain scan comparison between human and alien neural patterns. Most successful spacefaring species evolved as cooperative herd animals or social gatherers. Their stress responses favor conflict avoidance and consensus building. She pulled up historical footage from Earth's military archives. Humans, however, evolved as pursuit predators. Under threat, we don't automatically retreat. We can become more focused, more dangerous. Admiral Kowalski studied the data with narrowed eyes. "You're saying they caged us because we think differently. I'm saying they caged us because we're the only known species whose performance can improve under stress," Jackson clarified. "In their psychological profiles, we're paradoxical, simultaneously empathetic enough to form complex societies, but predatory enough to thrive on competition and conflict." Director Winters leaned forward. "And this explains the quarantine technology, the sabotage of our early exploration efforts." "Precisely." Jackson brought up recovered fragments of alien technology, devices found in the wreckage of failed early spacecraft, now recognized as deliberate sabotage. "They couldn't risk us joining galactic society as equals. Our adaptability posed too great a threat to the established order." Commander Chen had been silently processing the information. But why maintain the fiction of diplomatic relations, the non-interference treaties, the conservation zone designation for our system? "Self-preservation," Jackson replied. "Based on recovered data, they determined that an outright hostile action against Earth would trigger exactly the response they feared most: unified human resistance." Her expression hardened. "So they chose the perfect prison, one where the inmates don't even know they're imprisoned." The tactical officer, Major Reyes, spoke up for the first time. "The Ellerin transmission mentioned 17 species in their confederation. Are they the ones who imprisoned us?" "Unknown," Jackson admitted. "But the timing aligns with the establishment of their confederation 3 centuries ago. It's possible the quarantine was one of their founding actions." Admiral Kowalski stood, approaching the galactic map that dominated the chamber center. With a gesture, he highlighted Earth's position, then the estimated location of the Ellerin Confederation. "So we're about to aid the very people who imprisoned us," he said quietly. "If they even survive that long," Chen added, reviewing the latest signal analysis. "Based on the decay rate of their transmission, the Void Swarm will reach their core worlds within the month." Director Winters joined Kowalski at the map, her aged hand hovering over the glowing representation of Earth. "The irony isn't lost on me, Admiral, but consider the strategic advantage. They expect us, if they remember us at all, to be a primitive, isolated species barely capable of reaching our own moon." A thin smile crossed Kowalski's face. "Instead, they get the full might of what we've built while they weren't watching." More importantly, Jackson added, "The swarm sounds unlike anything in our theoretical xenobiology files. If it can consume entire star systems, Earth's quarantine won't protect us forever. Better to fight it there, with reluctant allies, than here alone." The council members exchanged glances, centuries of suspicion and preparation culminating in this moment. Humanity had always looked to the stars with wonder, never suspecting that the stars had looked back with fear. "The Fold space drives are ready," reported Chief Engineer Commander Okafor, entering the chamber. "All ships report green status. We can break quarantine within the hour." Admiral Kowalski nodded, his decision made. "Send the order to all ships. Operation Daybreak commences in 30 minutes. He turned to face the assembled leaders of humanity. It's time to show the galaxy exactly why they were right to fear us, and why that fear will now save them. The edge of Sol's heliosphere marked humanity's prison boundary for 3 centuries. As the Lazarus fleet approached this invisible line, tension filled the bridge of the Thermopylae. Admiral Kowalski stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the main view screen as the stars seemed to grow sharper, more defined. "Distance to quarantine perimeter?" he asked quietly. 30,000 kilometers, sir," Lieutenant Park reported from the navigation station. "Sensors are detecting energy fluctuations consistent with theoretical models of automated defense systems." Commander Chen monitored the communications array, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Multiple signals detected, sir. Automated warnings in 17 different languages. Basic translation suggests they're telling us to turn back." As expected, Kowalski nodded. Tactical status of the defense grid. Major Diana Cross stood at the weapons console, her posture rigid. Orbital platforms exactly where intelligence predicted. Automated, no life signs. Energy signatures suggest they're powered by quantum fold technology, consistent with the fragments we recovered from the New Armstrong colony incident. That incident, officially logged as a meteor strike that destroyed humanity's first permanent lunar settlement, had provided crucial information about the quarantine technology. The deaths of 200 colonists had not been in vain. "All ships, assume defensive formation Delta," Kowalski ordered. "Prepare point defense systems for full spectrum coverage." The massive human fleet, hidden for generations, reorganized with practiced precision. Smaller vessels moved to protective positions around the capital ships, their hulls bristling with countermeasure systems. "Sir," Commander Chen reported, "we're receiving additional signals. Not automated this time. Multiple sources, encrypted." "They've noticed us," Kowalski said grimly. "The Watchers." Intelligence had long suspected observation posts beyond the perimeter, alien monitoring stations ensuring humanity remained properly caged. Now they were about to meet their jailers face to face. "All ships, this is Admiral Kowalski. Commence Operation Daybreak." "I say again, commence Operation Daybreak." Throughout the fleet, weapon systems powered up. Not to attack, but to demonstrate. This was humanity's coming out party, and they intended to make an impression. "Point defense systems active," Major Cross reported. "All ships reporting ready status." Kowalski nodded. "Execute." The space around the human fleet erupted in a synchronized display of firepower. Thousands of precision energy beams lanced outward, connecting with the previously invisible defense satellites. The quarantine platforms, designed to destroy primitive human ships attempting to leave, shattered under the overwhelming force. On the tactical display, Chen watched as dozens of previously hidden signatures suddenly began moving. "Multiple vessels breaking stealth, sir. They're retreating at high speed." As expected, Kowalski said, "No species wants to be caught committing an act of war once the prisoner breaks free. Put me on broadcast to all frequencies." Chen nodded, opening the channel. "This is Admiral William Kowalski of the Terran Defense Fleet. To all observing powers, the quarantine of Earth is hereby terminated. We have received a distress call from the Ellerin Confederation and are responding with humanitarian and military assistance. Any attempt to interfere with our mission will be considered an act of war against humanity." He paused, then added with steel in his voice, "We know what you've done. We know you've kept us caged while pretending to respect our sovereignty. That ends today. But despite 3 centuries of deception, we're still coming to help. Remember that when you consider your next actions." As the transmission ended, the fold space drives of the Lazarus fleet engage. Space itself twisted around the human armada as they prepared their first leap into the wider galaxy. "Coordinates locked for the Cygnus sector," Park confirmed. "Fold integrity at 100%. Kowalski took one last look at the solar system that had been humanity's cage and cradle. Execute jump. The fleet vanished in a cascade of blue-white energy, leaving behind only debris where the quarantine platforms had been, and a message that would send shockwaves through the galaxy. Humanity was free, humanity was coming, and humanity was angry. The command center of Elora Prime's orbital defense station was in chaos. Emergency alerts blared as tactical officers struggled to make sense of the sensor readings. The human vessels had arrived just hours ago, and already the battle dynamics had shifted in ways no Elleran military strategist could have predicted. Another breach in Section 14, shouted Security Chief Vex, his translucent membranes pulsing with stress hormones. The swarm infiltrators are converging on the central power distribution hub. Elleran Marines rushed to respond, their crystalline armor catching the emergency lighting as they moved with practiced efficiency. But against the Void Swarm's corrupted matter entities, efficiency wasn't enough. Already, 3 sections of the station had been lost, their occupants reduced to lifeless husks. Chancellor Taylor watched from the secure communications hub, where she had been coordinating with the newly arrived human fleet. How many personnel do we have left in that sector? 17 Marines, but they're reporting heavy resistance, Vex replied, his voice trained. The containment fields are failing. Evacuation protocols. The station shuddered as a new proximity alert sounded. On the main display, a small human craft had detached from their flagship and was approaching the station at incredible speed. Chancellor, came the calm voice of Lieutenant Commander Chen through the comms. We've detected multiple swarm entities converging on your station. We're dispatching a Marine contingent to assist. Before Taylor could respond, the human shuttle had docked at Emergency Airlock 7, the closest access point to the breached section. Security feeds showed the airlock cycling open. Taylor and her staff watched in stunned silence as 12 human soldiers emerged. Their armor was unlike the crystalline protection of Elleran forces. Dark, segmented plates that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Each carried weapons that hummed with energy signatures unlike anything in Elleran armories. "What are they doing?" whispered Assistant Minister Laurel. "Those are just 12 individuals. We've already lost 30 Marines to the swarm entities in that section." The humans moved with a coordination that seemed almost hive-like in its precision. They spread through the corridors toward the breach points, communicating in short bursts of encrypted data rather than voice commands. The security feeds from Section 14 showed the first encounter. A swarm entity, a twisting mass of corruption that vaguely retained the shape of the Elleran it had consumed, lunged at the lead human soldier. Instead of retreating, the soldier stepped into the attack, firing a weapon that seemed to disrupt the very atomic structure of the entity. "Incredible," murmured Chief Science Officer Maven, who had insisted on remaining aboard despite the evacuation orders. "Their weapons are targeting the quantum instability of the swarm's physical manifestation." What happened next would be recorded and studied in Elleran military academies for generations. The human Marines engaged the swarm entities with a ferocity that seemed impossible. When one soldier was injured, a swarm tendril piercing their armor, they didn't retreat as any rational being would. Instead, they severed the affected limb themselves and continued fighting one-handed. "By the ancestors," whispered Vex as they watched the feeds. "What kind of species does that?" The human squad leader, identified in their communications as Lieutenant Maya Rodriguez, took a hit that would have killed an Elleran instantly, a void tendril through her abdomen. Yet she remained standing, injecting herself with some compound before continuing to direct her team. When the last swarm entity had been neutralized, security teams rushed to assist the humans. Commander Zinthos approached Rodriguez, who was being treated by her squad's medic despite her protests. "How?" Zinthos asked simply, gesturing to her grievous wound. "How are you still functioning?" Rodriguez's face formed an expression Ellorans would later learn was called a smile. Though with blood streaking her features, it appeared more predatory than friendly. "Pain is just information, sir," she replied, her voice steady despite her injury. And the mission wasn't complete. The recording of that exchange spread through Ellerin networks faster than any official communication. Their saviors weren't just powerful, they were something else entirely. Something that could face the void and smile back. The bridge of the Thermopylae fell silent as the tactical display updated. The void swarm's main consciousness had arrived at the edges of the Ellerin system, its vast, nebulous form blotting out the stars themselves. Tendrils of dark energy stretched across millions of kilometers, probing toward Elora Prime like hungry fingers. Analysis complete, reported Science Officer Dr. Evelyn Shaw, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding on the displays. The swarm's central mass contains approximately 87% of its neural network. The remaining 13% is distributed through those extension tendrils. Admiral Kowalski studied the projection, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display, and the quantum disruption bombs. Simulations indicate they'll trigger a cascading failure if delivered directly to the central neural cluster, Shaw confirmed. But the energy density around the primary mass is too high for conventional delivery systems. There is no safe approach vector. Added Major Cross from Tactical. The void consumes all matter within 10,000 kilometers of its core. No drone or missile would reach the target intact. Commander Chen watched the Admiral's expression shift subtly, the minute change that those who had served with him recognized as decision. "What about the Spartacus?" Kowalski asked quietly. The command staff exchanged glances. The destroyer Spartacus was equipped with experimental shielding technology, designed to withstand the extreme conditions near unstable stars during research missions. Theoretically, Shaw began, careful with her words, the Spartacus could maintain integrity for approximately 47 seconds within the outer layers of the swarm's central mass. But sir, that's a suicide mission. No ship could extract after delivery. Kowalski nodded once, open a channel to Captain Reeves. On the main view screen, the face of Thomas Reeves appeared. At 38, he was one of the youngest captains in the fleet, with a reputation for unconventional tactics. "Admiral," Reeves acknowledged with a sharp nod. "Captain, you've been monitoring our analysis." "Yes, sir. The Spartacus stands ready." No further explanation was needed. Both men understood what was being asked, what was being offered. "The safety of Earth and Elora Prime depends on this mission, Captain," Kowalski said formally. Reeves smiled slightly. "It's what we trained for, sir. The Spartacus will deliver the package." After the transmission ended, the bridge remained silent until Chen spoke quietly. "Sir, they have families. They all volunteered for this mission, knowing it might be one way," Kowalski replied, though the weight in his voice betrayed his feelings. "And they'll save billions." The next hours passed in grim preparation. The quantum disruption bombs, technology reverse-engineered from the very quarantine devices once used against humanity, were transferred to the Spartacus. Meanwhile, the rest of the human fleet reorganized into a formation that baffled Ellerin military observers. "They're moving toward the swarm," Chancellor Taylor noted with alarm as she watched from the Ellerin command center, not away from it. "Intentionally drawing its attention," confirmed Commander Zinthos, "a diversion for whatever they're planning." The human channel remained open, allowing the Elorans to witness what followed. Captain Reeves addressed his crew one final time, his image transmitted across both fleets. "Crew of the Spartacus, this is your captain speaking. In approximately 12 minutes, we will execute our final mission. Some might call this a sacrifice, but I see it differently." His steady gaze seemed to reach through the screen. 3 centuries ago, humanity was judged too dangerous to join the galactic community. Today, we prove them right. And we prove them wrong. Our capacity for violence is matched only by our willingness to use it in defense of others. For Earth and Elora. His crew responded as one. For Earth and Elora. As the Spartacus accelerated toward the heart of darkness, the destroyer broadcast one final message to all frequencies. "This is Captain Thomas Reeves of the Terran ship Spartacus. We are a species that has faced extinction before and refused to die. Today, we extend that same protection to you. Remember us." The Spartacus vanished into the churning mass of the void swarm, its shields flaring brilliant blue against the absolute darkness. For 3 heartbeats after the Spartacus vanished into the void swarm's mass, nothing happened. Then a pulse of blue-white light erupted from deep within the darkness, expanding outward in concentric rings of disruptive energy. "Quantum cascade initiated," Dr. Shaw announced, her voice rising above the suddenly active bridge. The bombs detonated precisely at the neural nexus. On the tactical display, the void swarm's cohesive form began to fracture. Its vast tendrils, reaching toward Elora Prime, spasmed and recoiled as if in pain. The neural connections that bound the collective consciousness were failing, transforming the unified threat into disconnected fragments. "All ships, this is Admiral Kowalski. Execute Operation Firebreak immediately. Repeat, execute Firebreak." Throughout the system, human vessels moved with choreographed precision, deploying specialized equipment near Elora's planetary defense stations. Teams of human engineers, transported hours earlier, worked alongside bewildered Eloran technicians, reconfiguring the shield generators that had proven useless against the Void Swarm's attacks. Chancellor Taylor watched in astonishment as her planetary defense systems control interfaces transformed before her eyes. "What are they doing to our shields?" Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Navian Sharma, the human liaison to the Eloran Defense Ministry, offered a grim smile. "Not shields anymore, Chancellor. Weapons." At his command, the planetary defense stations around Elora Prime powered down the protective fields. Energy that had been used to create invisible barriers now coalesced into visible concentrated beams that lanced out toward the fragmented swarm entities. The shields were never effective against the swarm because they were designed to repel physical objects, Sharma explained as the beams cut through the darkness. "We've reconfigured them to release their stored energy in directed bursts that matched the disruptive frequency of the swarm's neural patterns." The effect was immediate and devastating. Where the beams touched the swarm fragments, the void matter disintegrated, unable to maintain cohesion against the targeted energy assault. Aboard the Thermopylae, Commander Chen received the incoming transmission. "Admiral, the Independence has arrived." Through the newly formed gap in the swarm's shattered defenses, the second wave of humanity's fleet emerged from fold space. Unlike the warships of the Lazarus fleet, these vessels had a different configuration. Massive carriers surrounded by swarms of smaller craft. "Deploy the Wraith units," Kowalski ordered. From the carriers launched thousands of mechanized combat frames, each controlled by a human pilot neurally linked from secure facilities back in the Sol system. Free from the limitations of organic bodies, these remote units moved with impossible speed and precision, targeting the remaining neural nodes of the swarm with surgical accuracy. On the Eloran command frequency, stunned silence gave way to cautious hope as military leaders watched the tide turn. "Their combat frames are pushing the swarm back," Commander Zinthos reported, disbelief evident in his voice. "The fragments can't reorganize fast enough to counter their attack patterns." Chancellor Taylor's attention was drawn to another alert. "We're receiving transmissions from neighboring systems. The Myraxian Alliance and the Vox Collective are deploying forces to our location." She looked up, surprise evident in her features. "They're offering assistance." Admiral Kowalski nodded grimly when informed. "Of course they are. Now that we've proven the swarm can be fought, they're eager to be on the winning side." He turned to his communications officer. "Inform them we welcome their support, and invite their representatives to witness what happens next." As if responding to his words, a new signal appeared on the long-range sensors, a communication request from the Galactic Council, the very authority that had orchestrated humanity's isolation centuries ago. "Well," Kowalski said with a cold smile, "it seems we've finally got their attention." The rebuilt Grand Hall of Elora Prime gleamed under the light of 3 moons. 6 months after the Battle of the Void, representatives from 37 species gathered beneath its crystalline dome to witness what many had thought impossible: a formal alliance between humanity and the galactic community. Admiral William Kowalski, now bearing the title of Earth's first galactic ambassador, stood on the dais beside Chancellor Taylor. His dress uniform, with its gleaming medals and insignia, contrasted sharply with the flowing ceremonial robes of the Elleran dignitaries. The Galactic Council representatives sat in the front row, their discomfort evident despite their diplomatic training. For centuries, they had maintained the fiction that Earth was too primitive for contact, while secretly ensuring humanity remained isolated. Now, they faced the consequences of their deception. The document before us today, Chancellor Taylor addressed the assembly, her voice carrying through the perfect acoustics of the hall, is not merely a peace treaty or a trade agreement. The Elora Accords represent a fundamental shift in our understanding of our place in the cosmos. Murmurs rippled through the gathered diplomats. Many still harbored deep reservations about bringing humans into the galactic fold. The Battle of the Void had proven their military prowess, but that same capacity for warfare made many species deeply uncomfortable. We isolated humanity because we feared their nature, Taylor continued, her gaze sweeping across the assembly. In doing so, we denied ourselves the very ally we most needed when darkness came to our shores. The Elleran leader gestured toward the memorial wall, where the names of fallen defenders were inscribed. Elleran and human alike. Most prominent was the crew manifest of the Spartacus, whose sacrifice had turned the tide of the battle. The Void Swarm has been driven back to the galactic rim, but our scientists confirm it is regrouping, Taylor stated frankly. The threat remains, and I, for one, am grateful that humanity stands with us against it. As Kowalski stepped forward to sign the accords, a representative from the Myraxian Alliance rose in formal objection. The humans' military capabilities remain unchecked. What guarantees do we have that they won't turn their weapons against the rest of us once the swarm is defeated? A tense silence fell over the assembly. The question voiced what many were thinking, but dared not say aloud. Kowalski's weathered face remained impassive as he set down the ceremonial pen. None, he answered simply. You have no guarantees beyond our word. Just as we have no guarantee that you won't attempt to imprison us again when this crisis passes. His honesty startled the gathered diplomats. This wasn't how interspecies negotiations typically proceeded. But consider this, Kowalski continued. When we discovered your deception, when we learned that the galaxy had conspired to keep us caged, our first act was not revenge. It was to answer a call for help. Judge us by our actions, not your fears. The Myraxian representative slowly sat down, unable to counter this logic. After the formal signing ceremony concluded, a young Elleran diplomat approached Kowalski in the garden overlooking the capital city, still bearing the scars of the Void Swarm's attack. Ambassador, she began hesitantly, may I ask you something directly? After what was done to your people, why did you come? Why fight for us? Kowalski gazed at the reconstruction efforts visible across the cityscape, where human engineers worked alongside Elleran builders. Because that's what humans do, he answered. The galaxy feared us for our capacity for violence, never understanding that this same capacity makes us perfect guardians. We don't fight because we love war. We fight because we love what we protect. He turned to face her, his expression softening. And now that includes all of you. As twilight fell over the recovering planet, intelligence reports confirmed movement at the edge of known space. The Void Swarm was regrouping. But this time, the galaxy would not face the darkness alone. Humanity, the species once feared and imprisoned, now stood watch on the frontier, their terrible fleet a beacon of hope rather than fear. The most dangerous predators in the galaxy had become its most determined protectors.